Good afternoon, everyone. Today I'm Chanakarn Muangmangkhang from SCB 10X. Today I'm with Pisuth Huang, CEO of Gowajee, a voice AI startup from Thailand. And today's topic is about enterprise voice AI applications for low resource markets. Before we start, I just want to say that I'm really like the name Gowajee. Go is like go, right? And Wajee means speech in English. So let's start with the introduction of yourself, Ren, and your background, and a brief intro of Gowajee.
Sure, yeah. Thank you, Connect, for the very kind introduction. So my name is Ren. I'm the CEO of co-founder of Gowajee. We are basically a voice AI agent platform specializes in revenue generation. Our focus and our target market is actually in the Southeast Asia and the Greater Asia market. So, very glad to be talking about, how to handle these kind of like low resources market in general as well, because I do feel like that's actually a very big challenges that a lot of the Western market probably won't have to face on a day-to-day basis, unlike us, right? Because most of the English languages are have a very big resources already in terms of corpuses and data. So yeah, happy to be here today.
Yeah, it's fascinating to see like how Gowajee is starting from the research lab, right? And you make your way to be one of the notable players in the market. So we want to find out more about your journey. But most of the AI companies that we see today often start with English or the major languages first, but you chose Thai, a tonal and low resource language. So what is your inspiration and what untapped opportunity do you see?
I mean, it's not really intentionally. I think the way that we started is that I was talking to one of our co-founder who's a professor at Chulalongkorn University, right? And he said he has this speech recognition technology that, is something that are far better than what's available out there. And I think traditionally what we see a lot is that, the big tech, they focus a lot on English language because, rightfully so, because there's so many people using English, right? And then you have like the second tier languages like the Chinese, the Spanish, the French that a little bit less people speak to. And then there's the third tier languages that are population wise very, very little, like Thai is one example of them. And also, I think most of the Southeast Asian countries are examples of them. And it makes sense for big tech to not focus on these, right? Because mainly, number one, there's not a lot of people using, and number two, it's actually sometimes more difficult. For example, I think Thai language, we're on the difficulty chart, we're tier 5, which basically means the hardest tier in general. I think we have very unique things. Things like we have no spaces between words. We have no stopgap like full stop. Our grammar is not really standardized. So making these kind of languages very hard to deal with. And couple that with the fact that there's not a lot of people using it, it makes a lot of sense for big companies to deprioritize this. But then because of this, we see a big gap in these languages that, okay, these people still need them, right? And then the use cases are huge, even though it's not as big as the English languages. But once you combine all of the low resource languages together, I think that's the majority of the languages being spoke globally. So we thought this is still a very big problem that, the Western world are sort of like overlooking, that probably have to be solved by people that are not in the US, right?
Makes sense. And what solutions are you providing? And can you give us a quick overview of the landscape of voice AI in Thailand?
Yeah, I mean, there's different layers that you can do things. We sort of started as a speech recognition provider, so an API company doing ASR, to specialize in the Thai language. But eventually, we also sort of like move up the stack to from base layer to the middleware layer, and then now eventually to the application layer, which is a voice agent. Because the main reason for that is because we feel like I think there's where most of the values are in general on how to do things. And number two, I think it requires a lot less effort from the client side to bring these technology to reality, which I think a lot of companies here have very low resources. That's why we want to move up the stacks to make sure that we have more and more values. So yeah, we eventually now working on the voice agents. We think that, I'm sure a lot of the US market people will agree, is basically the big hot thing in the world right now, and rightfully so, right? Because of the potential impact that it can bring.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely agree with you that voice AI agent with integration with the enterprise workflow, so that enterprise can have end-to-end solution is a good way to go. And can you give us explanation on the differentiation of your new AI solution compared with the last gen rule-based solution of voice bot and voice AI?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just the quick answer is the effectiveness, right? So if you think about more traditional things like IVR, the one that you press 1, press 2 when you talk to the phone, or a little bit more recent one, but not so recent, like maybe late 2010s, is these kind of like dialog flow rule-based voice bot. Those thing works to some extent, but it's not very flexible, right? So people know that it's very rigid. The UX UI, the experience is not great, and the flow is very solid, right? So you can't really have a conversation with them. You sort of are forced into these kind of flow-based conversation that you just said yes, no, give a score of 5, or no, yes, and then you have a very long tree. So the experience is really, really bad. So once you're in the outbound space, that basically matters a lot, because people pick up and then they get annoyed and they sort of like hang up. And that makes the effectiveness of your bot very, very bad. Whereas I think today with ChatGPT and everything, and these LLM models, that making these voice AI agent more new gen, like the LLM-based one, like what we're building, the flow is actually much more conversational, right? So it's not like, you listen to 10 seconds of audio, you said yes or no, listen to the 10 seconds of audio, say yes or no, and then wasted 3 minutes, right? This one is more interactive, so you can ask a lot of questions. And at least from our results, the effectiveness has seen like 3 to 5x improvement from the traditional method, which is quite substantial. So I think, I think the world is moving that way. Essentially, ultimately it's just a superior technology, right? And we're just trying to leverage that.
Mm-hmm. And this is out of curiosity, because
Sure, yeah.
You understand that Thai language is very unique and interesting, like you mentioned, right? We often develop the sentence with the mixture of Thai and English words. So how do you what is technology or data set behind this development?
Yeah, I mean, code switching is a problem essentially just for the audience, right? Code switching basically means you're mixing two different languages. And if you're using these kind of simple purpose model, most of the time it doesn't really handle these well. You sort of like have to have a unique pair of data to do that. So for instance, in Thailand, you might be mixing Thai and English. In Singapore, you might be mixing English, Singlish, plus some Chinese, some Malay. So it's a very unique problem that I think happens in Southeast Asia a lot. Not sure about the US, but yeah, so you sort of like needs to handle this explicitly. Most model out there doesn't really do it because they don't see these kind of problem day to day. And really, in terms of like model development, there's no like very unique thing that we do, right? Essentially, it's all in the data. So you just have to make sure that the data that you have these kind of mixing languages nature of it, to have enough of them to be able to handle these kind of stuff. Yeah, it's not magic. I think it's basically consensus right now that data is just it's the way to go if you want to build something unique and defensible in that end.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, with the proprietary data set, I believe that makes Gowajee's voice AI agent sound so native without any accent. Because I noticed from the large LLMs, we found a lot of like foreign accent in Thai speech, right? So I guess that's from the proprietary data set from Gowajee, right?
It's very interesting. You can sort of force it to speak English in a foreign accent or Thai accent, right? And if you speak Thai, and then suddenly you have an English word like international or I don't know, like department store or internet, and then it suddenly jump up with a different accent, it'll be super weird, right? So I think it's important to sort of like localize here a little bit too. So you speak different languages in the accent that people are sort of like used to listening to.
Mm-hmm. I'm curious about the sustainability and the competitive advantage of starting with low resource language. What is the long-term differentiation or edge in voice AI space?
Yeah, I do think we think about edge in three different layers. So the first layer is that the short-term edge. I think short-term wise right now, we're very much focusing on low resource languages that are niche. And this is when like early stage data and go to market will really matter a lot. Essentially, it means we're one of the few players who actually have data and also have the capabilities of doing these kind of low resources languages across our region. So that will basically makes our go to market much easier and have a superior product, right? But this kind of edge probably lasts maybe like 1 to 3 years. This is a short-term edge in general. And then you sort of like move up the stack a little bit into midterm edge. And I think that will come from probably talent. And we're lucky to be partner with one of the professor in Thailand, and a lot of his students basically go on to do a lot of PhDs and work for big corporates. A lot of them are very, very talented. So we sort of have a relationship with these people in our country, top researchers in our country, to sort of like to convince them to come work for us in the midterm. But I think long-term wise, this is where it gets interesting, is that like any technology, I don't think any technology moat are long-term, right? Like eventually these will be commoditized just like any other technology, and then the moat will actually come from somewhere else. In our case, I think it's ultimately becoming the system of record and system of work, which essentially means you become a part of a company's or enterprise workflow that are so essential, it's really hard to take out. Right, and that will basically make your product very, very sticky. And once you have a big ecosystem, that's essentially how you grow. Kind of like Salesforce of the world, right? I mean, like Salesforce software, any person can build that now. But the reason why they're still there and they're still making so much money and being so defensible is because of the things that I just said. So I think long-term wise, that those are the things that we sort of have to become over time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you touch upon the enterprise adoption and enterprise stickiness. So I just want to throw the number here that right now the global contact center is worth like $400 billion, but sometimes enterprise are often unsure to adopt AI because of the accuracy, the security, right? But how do you convince the management with the ROI, and how do you build trust with the enterprise?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's two questions in there, right? So one is trust and one is convincing. I think the difficult thing, well, not difficult, like because of ChatGPT and everyone have seen the magic already, the bar of good work for AI has gone up significantly, right? So it has to work like magic, essentially, is the expectation of these big corporates. I think especially for enterprise, adopting any new technology will be difficult. So generally, when we started with these kind of enterprise clients, we wanted to do something that have like low risk first, right? For instance, if you're doing things like contact center inbound automation, you might not want to say, okay, handle the whole call centers from day one, right? Because that will be very, very risky for the clients. If anything goes wrong, then the whole operation is done. You want to start with something a little bit low risk. For example, if, for instance, the company is not doing 24/7 services, you might be able to start with the evening times, the 8 p.m. to 8 a.m. right? First to see how well it goes, because even if it breaks, it's still not worse than not having any contact center at all, right? So the risks and the impact of failing is actually much lower. So that's kind of like the safety net things. But I think at the same time, there's also the upside things where people are very excited about is when you're looking at the work done, for example, for outbound calls, you're seeing these voice AI agent doing significantly better than the traditional method, which is just pure human, right? One example would be if you're doing things like telesales, your conversion rate might be, let's say, 2%. And all those 2% essentially is human calling, and 98% of the calls are basically wasted energy. So what if, like, one of the way that you can do things is you can just use AI to do pre-qualification. So instead of human doing all of the calls, you have AI to do all of the call first. And then once you pre-qualify them to say from 100 to 20, then you send that 20 calls to the agent, right? And then the human will basically try to close that. Even if the number is still 2%, the conversion rate is going to be 10%. So essentially what that means is the conversion rate, the revenue of that company, if you're doing telesales space, is 5x instant, right? So that's the amount of impacts that I think we're seeing in the market right now, and why voice AI has such a big potential.
Mm-hmm. And can you give us examples of solutions that you provide to your enterprise clients, and how is the impact from the solutions?
Yeah, I can give an example of one use case, which is essentially debt collections, debt reminders. So I can't share the name, obviously, but the impact is that we did a outbound calls, and the results of the calls is actually around 5x better than human. And I think there's different reason for that. Number one is the sheer number of calls that you can do at scale in parallel, right? If you have human, if you want to do 100 calls in parallel, you need to hire 100 people, whereas you just need one AI and you can do the same thing. You want to 10x that? Great. One click of a button, and then you can just do 1,000 calls in parallel, right? So just sheer number of calls already is a very strong impact. The other one is, I think, customer behavior, which is very interesting. Most people think that human are actually more convincing and can probably have higher conversion rate than AI. But what we found after we do some testing is that because like scam calls are so prevalent right now, once it's a random number calling a person, people will start to put their guards up, right? So like, are you a scam? I don't know who you are. What are you trying to sell me? Are you trying to scam me? So they put their guards up, so they stop listening to any promotions or anything you want to sell to them. Whereas if it's a bot, then I think most people have a very very high tolerance for this, and they don't think that AI will actually be able to scam them. So they put their guards down, right? And once they put their guards down, they're more willing to listen, and hence that make these kind of engagement conversation less scary and higher conversion rate in general. It's very interesting and very intuitive.
It's interesting use case that people actually want to talk to AI because they're scared of the scammers,
yeah.
right?
It's very interesting problem that we have nowadays.
Yeah. And do people actually know that, like, some people actually know that they're talking to AI and not human?
Yeah, some people know. I think some people ask you. Some people are like, "Yeah, is this AI or not? I'm not sure. I better ask it." And then we'll say like, "Yeah, it's an AI agent," and be like, "Fine," and then continue the conversation. So it's pretty common. Another example I think from US companies is that we've seen companies like Sierra, who are doing very well, like Decagon, they're seeing a lot of these AI customer service, customer resolution. They actually have much higher resolution rate than human, and also much higher CSAT score than human. CSAT score essentially is the score that do customer satisfaction. And the main reason is because, number one, you don't have to wait in line for so long because AI is available 24/7. Usually when you call a company, you might be on hold for like 20 minutes or an hour, and that already annoys the customer very, very much. With AI, you don't have to do that. And number two, because it's AI, you don't have to care too much about these kind of politeness and annoying other person and holding yourself back from, I don't know, swearing at the person. Then the human that are doing the calling are actually much happier, which is very interesting as well, right? We're seeing more effective performance, lower cost, much higher availability overall.
Yeah, agreed. And when competing with tech giants like Google, Microsoft, AWS, or the startups like LLM Labs, what is your defensibility mode?
Yeah, I do think that we got questions a lot from various people, like, why can't you just use 11 Labs and then plus ChatGPT, and then you got a resulting voice bot, right? And the reality is that I think let's say a new graduate can do that over a weekend, right? And then you can show a very good and cool looking demo, and it looks very impressive and all. But then underneath that, there's actually it's like a typical 20-80 thing. You can spend 20% of the effort to get 80% there. But then if you want to get from 80% of completeness to say 95%, 99%, which is usually what an enterprise would require, you actually requires 10 or 100x more effort, right? And there's actually a lot of things underneath, things like latency, like price, sustainability, scalability, integrating to different aspects of enterprises, handling unique vocabularies, custom pronunciations. All of these things are required by a big corporate and make it scalable to make it useful. And I think that's where our technology and our stack will come in to solve these problems. So yeah, there's a pretty huge gap between a demo and an enterprise-ready voice bot in general.
So your team generally spend time with the management to understand the workflow and trying to provide the end-to-end solutions for them.
Yeah. I mean, we wanted to help them to make sure that everything works smoothly inside of their operations, right? And customer impact is the stickiest things of all, right? If the customers are happy and it actually helps them make more money or saves more money, then that's the best mode you can have.
Yeah, and many enterprises are worried about replacing human with AI. So what do you think? How do you position voice AI as an enabler, not a replacement for human interaction? What change management have you seen in the enterprise nowadays?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a famous, I would say quote, but it's a famous topic that a lot of people debate about, right? And what we've seen in general is that companies, they don't usually fire people. They sort of repurpose them, right? In general. I'll give you one example, right? And it's actually a win-win-win example that everyone wins. For instance, like telesales. So telesale, essentially the use case that I told you just now about pre-qualifying, if we start doing that, essentially it means what? It means, okay, the companies gets more revenue because they're making more call and converting a little bit more. We make more revenue because we're helping these companies to generate more revenue. And the sales actually doesn't lose because they spend less time doing these kind of failed calls, and then they spend more time doing successful calls, right? And what that means is they get more commission and then they get rejected less. So it's actually a win-win-win situation where everyone wins in general. So yeah, I do think that over time, more repetitive work will be replaced, but people will be repurposed to do things that are more valuable for both the company and for themselves.
yeah, of course, the productivity will be increased, right? And people will free up to do more valuable things. I agree.
For
And
sure,
you
yeah.
mentioned, yeah, and you mentioned about your solutions of outbound calls, right? Um, what's next for Gowajee in this year and next year to expand product solutions and also like expanding to other languages?
Yeah, I mean, there's no reason to limit ourselves in a single language, right? So we do plan to, we started here in Thailand. We're going to market. We're doing pretty well here. But I think we're also targeting global market because we feel like it's everyone is sort of like in the same starting position because voice AI is only technically possible this year, LLM-based one at least. So everyone's starting around this year at the same time. So it's basically like a land grab at the moment. So there's no reason for us to just stick in one country. So yeah, we do plan to expand globally probably next year as well. That being said, I think Asian market is still very attractive in the sense that I would say the market size to competition ratio is very high, which basically means like, the market is huge relative to the amount of competitors out there. Because most competitors that we see right now focus in the US market or the Chinese market, right? Those are the two major ones. But Southeast Asia, East Asia in general are still very up for grab. So we see opportunities there for sure.
Can you give us some hint? What language are you going for next?
Yeah, I mean, English, obviously, that's the most common one, but probably Chinese in Taiwan, Korea, moving north a little bit. Yeah.
And what's the rationale behind that for like language like Chinese and Korean?
What's sorry?
The rationale.
Right. Yeah. So I think generally speaking, you want to look at not just the amount of people inside of a country, but you also want to look at things like GDP per capita, right? How much they're spending and how expensive are these people? Because it's just this one quote that I found from I think Alex Hormozy that are very interesting. Is that if you want to make a lot of money, sell to rich people, right? Because they pay more, right? You can say you can solve the exact same problem, but if you solve it for people with money, then you get paid more. Sounds very obvious, but it's sometimes it's overlooked. So we do think that up north, the ability to pay is actually much higher than a lot of neighboring countries that we have.
Yeah, I think we're running out of time, but just to wrap things up a bit, just for executives who are interested in voice AI, what is your call for action for them to adopt voice AI?
Sure. Thank you for the opportunity. So we're helping a lot of companies using voice AI to automate a lot of calls right now. If you're interested to using this in your enterprise, please feel free to reach out to us on our website. Just go to www.gowajee.ai, fill up the form, try out a demo, and then we'll give you a call.
Thank you so much for today, Ren. And yeah, really impressive to talk to you, and good luck with your journey with Gowajee.
Thank you so much, Gunet. It's always been a pleasure talking to you.
Thank you.
Thank you.